Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling this fascinating book all about kind of cracking the code of cross-cultural selling.
Okay.
Whether you're prepping for a big business deal, looking to expand your market, or just you know curious about navigating our increasingly diverse world, this deep dive is for you.
Right.
We are dissecting Cross-Cultural Selling for Dummies,
Okay.
a book packed with practical advice and I think a lot of aha moments.
Yeah, I think what's really fascinating about this book is that it doesn't just throw a bunch of facts at you.
Yeah,
It really emphasizes the why behind cross-cultural selling.
right.
And it really argues that understanding these cultural nuances can be the difference between,
Yeah.
closing a deal and completely missing the mark.
It's like having a secret weapon, right?
Yeah.
This book is your guide to kind of understanding the unspoken rules of the game in different cultures.
Yeah.
And it really starts by defining, what is culture?
Uh-huh.
And it's not just about ethnicity or race,
Exactly.
right?
The book digs deeper and explains that culture is more about those learned values,
Yeah.
beliefs, and behaviors that really shape how people interact
Yeah.
and do business.
Yeah, and that's where things get interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The book really argues that the multicultural market in the U.S. is booming.
Yeah,
It represents trillions of dollars in purchasing power.
it's huge.
We're talking serious money here.
Yeah, so ignoring this market is basically like leaving cash on the table.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of savvy businesses are already adapting.
right,
Think about banks tailoring their products to specific ethnic groups,
right.
or car manufacturers considering color preferences in different countries.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
I never thought about that.
yeah.
The book also debunks some common myths, I think,
Mhm.
that might be holding people back.
Uh-huh.
For instance, it really challenges the idea that customers always prefer to buy from their own people.
Yeah, that's a stereotype that can actually limit your reach. The book highlights that sometimes customers might actually prefer dealing with someone from a different background.
Yeah.
Maybe they perceive them as more neutral or objective.
Interesting. Okay, so how do we start kind of bridging these cultural gaps?
Yeah.
The book really zeroes in on building rapport.
Yes.
And it explains this crucial difference between high context and low context cultures.
Yeah. This is key.
Okay.
So high context cultures,
Yeah.
think many Asian or Latin American countries, place a huge emphasis on relationships and trust building.
Yeah.
It's not just about the deal itself.
Yeah.
It's about getting to know the person first.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas in the U.S. or other low context cultures, we tend to be much more direct.
Yeah, very transactional.
Yeah, transactional.
Focused on the deal.
Yeah, exactly.
So knowing where your customer falls on this spectrum can completely change your game plan.
Right.
For example, with high context cultures, taking the time to build that personal connection,
Yeah.
highlighting your company's track record,
Mm-hmm.
and really keeping your promises are so essential for building that foundation of trust.
The book dives into some practical tips for kind of navigating language barriers as well.
Yeah.
Even if you and your customer both speak English, there can still be communication hurdles.
That's so true.
Right.
The book advises slowing down your speech,
Yeah.
avoiding jargon,
Yeah.
and even using visual aids.
Makes sense.
Think about it, you might be saying one thing,
Uh-huh.
but your body language or cultural references could be sending a totally different message.
Totally. Yeah. And I think for really complex transactions,
Yeah.
especially, when maybe there's some legal or financial matters involved,
Right?
hiring a skilled interpreter can be invaluable.
Absolutely. Think of it as an investment in clear communication,
Yeah.
which ultimately builds trust and helps you seal the deal.
The book also stresses the importance of really tailoring your sales presentation to different cultural styles.
Yeah.
It's not like a one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all. Some cultures are more direct, some are more indirect.
Right.
Some prefer visual learning, others prefer a more hands-on experience.
Yeah.
So it's about reading the room and adapting your style accordingly.
And being super mindful of those nonverbal cues.
Oh, yeah.
Right, like direct eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
which is often seen as a sign of confidence in the U.S.
Yeah,
Might be considered rude or aggressive in other cultures.
absolutely.
Right.
And on the flip side, silence, which, can make some people feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
might actually be a sign of respect in other cultures.
Yeah.
So these subtle cues
Yeah.
can really make or break a deal.
Now, one of the most fascinating parts of the book, I think,
Okay.
is its insight into decoding buying signals.
Yeah.
So apparently what might seem like a negative response in one culture
Uh-huh.
could actually mean that the customer is ready to buy in another culture.
That's so true.
Isn't that interesting?
For example, some customers might switch to speaking in their native language when they're ready to commit. It's not that they're being rude.
Yeah.
It's often a sign that they're having like a private conversation with their family or business partners
Wow.
to kind of make that final decision.
That is so interesting. And it highlights how important it is to pay attention to those subtle cultural cues
Yeah,
and not jump to conclusions.
absolutely.
And speaking of cultural differences, the book doesn't shy away from the often tricky topic of negotiation.
Oh yeah, haggling is a way of life in many cultures.
Yeah.
The book advises against taking lowball offers personally.
Uh-huh.
It's often not meant as an insult.
Right.
It's just part of the dance.
It's part of the game.
Exactly.
Yeah. And be prepared to negotiate even after a contract is signed.
Oh yeah,
That can be a culture shock for those used to a more straightforward approach.
absolutely.
Right.
The book even offers some counterintuitive strategies,
Okay.
like using silence as a negotiating tactic.
Huh.
Letting the customer fill the silence can
Yeah.
sometimes lead them to raise their offer.
I never thought of it that way. But it makes sense.
It creates that space for them to reconsider or even feel a little bit of pressure to make a move.
The book also kind of shifts gears a little bit and talks about customer service.
Yeah.
And it really emphasizes that these small gestures can make a huge difference, especially when serving multicultural customers.
Absolutely.
Right.
Think about it like taking that extra step to help them find what they need.
Uh-huh.
Being patient and explaining things clearly,
Yeah.
particularly for newcomers to the U.S.,
Right.
can go a long way in building loyalty.
And don't be afraid to ask for feedback.
Right.
Right. Multicultural customers might be hesitant to complain directly.
Yeah.
So a proactive survey
Yeah.
can be like a gold mine of information.
It shows you're truly invested in understanding their needs and making their experience the best it can be.
The book also highlights the power of word-of-mouth referrals,
Oh, yeah.
which are like gold.
Especially in the multicultural market,
Right.
where trust is paramount.
Yeah.
So building genuine relationships is key. And the book suggests asking for referrals when a customer expresses gratitude.
Yeah.
Or, when you've just closed a sale,
Right.
it's a natural moment to capitalize on that positive energy
Yeah.
and encourage them to spread the word.
And finally, the book wraps up with this really powerful message about the importance of building a diverse sales team.
Absolutely.
And it's not about, ticking boxes.
Yeah.
It's about bringing a wealth of perspectives and experiences to the table.
Totally.
Right.
Which can help you better understand and serve the multicultural market.
Yeah.
A diverse team can also boost creativity and innovation within your company.
Right. It's like a win-win.
That's a win-win.
The book even offers practical advice for building a diverse team,
Yes.
like being mindful of cultural differences in communication styles during interviews.
Uh-huh.
Right. They even caution against relying solely on phone interviews,
Right.
which can unintentionally screen out qualified candidates.
Yeah, who might be less comfortable or familiar with that format. So it's about creating a level playing field and recognizing that talent comes in all shapes and sizes.
So we've unpacked a lot here. Cross-Cultural Selling for Dummies
Mhm.
is like a crash course in navigating the complexities of the multicultural marketplace.
Absolutely.
It's full of really actionable advice, I think, that you can start using right away.
For sure.
But before we jump into specific cultural examples, let's just take a quick pause.
Yeah.
What's resonating with you so far?
I think what strikes me is how this book emphasizes that cultural intelligence isn't just about avoiding like faux pas. It's about unlocking a whole world of possibilities.
Yeah.
It's about building bridges,
Yeah.
fostering understanding,
Yeah.
and ultimately creating win-win situations for everyone involved.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's about approaching cultural differences not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and understanding.
Right. And it's about shifting from a me-centric perspective to a we-centric one.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that we're all part of this global community.
Exactly.
Right.
And by embracing our differences, we can unlock incredible potential both in business and in life.
Beautifully said. I love that.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
It is.
It's like the book is saying, hey, the world is this vibrant tapestry,
Yeah.
and understanding its different threads can make you a more successful and insightful individual.
I love that. And the book doesn't just stop at these kind of general principles.
Right.
It gets down to brass tacks.
Yeah,
with a whole section dedicated to specific cultural nuances.
it does.
It's like a cheat sheet
It
for
is.
understanding different groups,
Uh-huh.
from Hispanics and Asians to Native Americans and even Anglo-Americans.
And what I appreciate is it doesn't just offer these broad strokes.
Yeah,
It acknowledges the diversity within these groups.
right.
For instance, within the Hispanic market,
Yeah.
there are distinct differences between Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, and so on.
It's about recognizing that each group has its own unique history,
Yeah.
values,
Mm-hmm.
communication style. So let's dive into some of these fascinating insights.
Yeah, okay.
The book mentions that Mexicans, for example, often prioritize personal relationships
Yes.
and prefer face-to-face interactions over emails or phone calls.
They value that personal touch.
Right.
And, family is huge in Mexican culture.
Yes.
So incorporating family-oriented themes or imagery in your marketing materials could really resonate.
The book also cautions against asking a Mexican man about his wife's profession,
Interesting.
as it could be misconstrued as implying he's not the primary breadwinner.
It's a subtle but important point.
Yeah.
Even seemingly innocuous questions
Right.
can have unintended consequences if you're not aware of the cultural context.
Now, when it comes to Puerto Ricans,
Okay.
the book notes that they tend to be more direct in their communication style
Mm-hmm.
and often use physical touch as a sign of friendliness.
But of course, personal space preferences vary widely across cultures.
Of course.
While a Puerto Rican might be comfortable standing close during a conversation, other groups might find that intrusive. Total. It's all about being sensitive to those nonverbal cues.
The book also offers some really intriguing insights into Filipino culture.
Okay.
For instance, they highly value respect for elders
Yeah.
and often use honorifics when addressing them.
Mm-hmm.
And Filipinos are known for their warm hospitality and love of food.
Oh.
So offering refreshments during meetings
Oh, yeah.
could go a long way in building rapport.
It's those little touches
Right.
that show you're making an effort to understand and respect their customs.
Now let's shift gears to Asian cultures,
Okay.
which are incredibly diverse.
So diverse.
When interacting with Chinese customers, for example,
Uh-huh.
it's important to be mindful of their strong emphasis on saving face.
Yes, meaning you want to avoid any actions or words that could cause embarrassment or make them feel like they've lost respect,
Especially in front of others.
especially in front of others.
Right.
Gift-giving etiquette is particularly important in Chinese culture. The book even cautions against giving clocks as gifts,
Real.
as they're associated with death.
Oh, wow.
It's those seemingly small details
Yeah.
that can have a big impact on how you're perceived.
Another interesting tidbit is that the number 4 is considered unlucky in Chinese culture.
Oh,
So
well,
maybe avoid using it in prices or other numerical representations.
you don't want to inadvertently send the wrong message.
Now, when it comes to Japanese culture,
Yeah.
the book highlights the importance of bowing as a sign of respect,
Yeah.
even if you're also shaking hands.
Uh-huh.
And Japanese business interactions tend to be very formal.
They do.
Building trust and establishing that solid relationship
Takes time.
takes time and patience.
It's not about rushing into a deal.
Right.
It's about cultivating that connection.
Direct eye contact can also be seen as aggressive in Japanese culture.
Yeah.
So maintaining a more moderate level of eye contact is probably a good rule of thumb.
And during negotiations, the Japanese tend to be very subtle. They might not say no directly.
Yeah. But instead use more indirect language.
So reading between the lines
Yes.
and paying attention to those nonverbal cues is essential.
The book also provides valuable insights into Indian culture.
Okay.
It mentions that Indians often use head movements,
Yeah.
like a bobble or a tilt,
Yeah.
to convey agreement or understanding.
Interesting.
And interrupting someone is considered rude.
Yeah.
So being a patient and attentive listener is key.
Showing respect for elders is also crucial in Indian culture.
Yes.
Addressing them with honorifics like auntie or uncle
Uh-huh.
can go a long way in demonstrating respect.
Now let's venture into Middle Eastern cultures.
Okay.
The book emphasizes that building personal relationships is paramount
Yeah.
in these cultures.
Hospitality is a core value.
Yes,
So be prepared for generous offers of food and drinks during meetings.
absolutely. It's considered a sign of respect
Right.
and a way to build rapport.
The book also notes that physical contact between men and women is generally avoided in most Middle Eastern cultures.
So it's best to err on the side of caution and avoid any unnecessary touching.
And be mindful of using your left hand for eating or passing objects,
Okay.
as it's considered unclean in many Middle Eastern cultures.
When it comes to negotiations, be prepared for a more elaborate and less time-bound process
Oh, yeah.
than you might be used to in the U.S.
Haggling is often an expected part of the process.
Right.
It's seen as a way to build rapport and establish a fair price.
Right.
It's not just about the bottom line. It's about the relationship.
Now let's turn our attention to Native American cultures.
Okay.
The book emphasizes the incredible diversity
Oh, yeah.
among Native American tribes.
Huge.
So it's essential to avoid generalizations.
It's about approaching each tribe with respect for their unique traditions and beliefs.
Right.
And if you're unsure about proper etiquette,
Yeah.
seeking guidance from tribal elders or cultural experts
Right.
is always a good idea.
One interesting tidbit is that silence is highly valued in many Native American cultures. It's seen as a sign of respect and a time for reflection.
So resist the urge to fill every silence with chatter
Yeah.
and allow space for those moments of quiet contemplation.
And finally, the book even dedicates a section to Anglo-Americans or Caucasians,
Interesting.
reminding us that everyone has cultural quirks.
It's a great point.
Right.
Cultural sensitivity isn't just about understanding people from different countries.
Yeah.
It's also about recognizing the subtle cultural differences within our own society.
The book notes that Anglo-Americans tend to be quite direct in their communication style and value punctuality.
Yeah.
So if you're meeting with an Anglo-American client, being on time and prepared to get down to business is key.
And while casual greetings like a handshake or wave are common,
Yeah.
it's important to be mindful of personal space preferences.
Yeah.
Some Anglo-Americans might prefer a bit more distance than others.
So as you can see, we've just scratched the surface here. Cross-Cultural Selling for Dummies is like a crash course in navigating the intricacies of the multicultural marketplace.
It is.
It's packed with practical tips you can use right away.
Absolutely.
But what's even more valuable, I think, is the mindset it encourages.
I completely agree.
It's about approaching cultural differences not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and understanding.
It's about shifting from a me-centric perspective to a we-centric one.
Recognizing that we're all part of a global community.
And that by embracing our differences, we can unlock incredible potential, both in business and in life.
Wow, this deep dive has been incredible.
Yes.
Cross-cultural selling for dummies is like having a secret decoder ring for understanding, the global marketplace.
Yeah.
It's not just about, tips and tricks.
Right.
It's a whole new way of thinking.
What I find so fascinating here is how the book encourages us to embrace those cultural differences, not as obstacles, but as opportunities.
Exactly. It's not about, trying to become an expert on every single culture on the planet.
Right.
That's impossible.
It's overwhelming. It's about cultivating, a genuine curiosity and a willingness to learn.
Yeah.
Being open to different ways of seeing the world.
And remembering that everyone, regardless of their background, wants to feel respected and understood.
Absolutely.
Have you ever had a moment where, understanding a cultural nuance made a real difference in a business interaction?
Oh, absolutely. I was once working on a deal with a client from the Middle East.
Okay.
And I almost messed things up by being too direct. In their culture-building relationships, and trust comes first.
Right.
I had to, slow down, focus on getting to know them, show genuine interest in their culture before we could even talk business.
That's a perfect example of how, cultural intelligence can make or break a deal.
Totally.
And I think this book does a fantastic job of providing those aha moments that can help us avoid those kinds of pitfalls.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive,
okay,
what's one key takeaway that you hope our listener will walk away with?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that embracing cultural diversity isn't just about being politically correct. It's about expanding our horizons, enriching our lives, and unlocking amazing opportunities both personally and professionally.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And remember, this journey of cultural understanding is ongoing.
It is.
Right? It's about continuous learning, growth, and being willing to kind of step outside of our comfort zones.
This book is a fantastic starting point.
Yeah.
But the real learning comes from engaging with people from different cultures,
right?
Asking questions, listening with an open mind.
Don't forget to check out the One Book a Day YouTube channel.
Yes.
For more insights on books like this.
Absolutely.
You can find a link to purchase Cross-Cultural Selling for Dummies on Amazon in the episode description. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into cross-cultural selling for dummies. Until next time, keep exploring, Keep learning and keep diving deep.
I love it. I love it.